Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. My name is Carrie Drinkwine, and I am on the board of medicine and science for Lumi Vitae. I am a traditional naturopath as well as a certified regenerative health practitioner, the owner of Wise Wellness Holistic Clinic and the Institute of Regenerative Health. So it is really my passion to educate people on all of the information that is out in the world. So today specifically, I want to talk about best water practices and certain waters that we do not recommend using in your molecular hydrogen bottle. So against popular belief, most people think that alkaline water is actually really good for us. I want to discuss why we do not recommend alkaline water, as well as reverse osmosis or distilled water. First and foremost, the reason we do not recommend alkaline water is that the pH is too high. Our gut is highly acidic. It's actually the pH of 2.4 or under. And the gut needs to maintain this very low pH. This is the most acidic place in the entire body, and it needs to remain that way in order to have proper digestion of proteins, as well as resistance to bacteria, pathogens, parasites, and antigens that might be introduced into the body. When we bring in alkaline water, we actually dilute the gut acid quite a bit. And there's quite a lot of research that shows the higher the pH the water, the less the cells function properly, especially in an environment where the gut acid needs to be quite high and the pH needs to be quite low. The acid in the gut is also a large part of what contributes to the action of peristalsis and that muscular contraction that's happening in the gut in order to move food from the stomach into the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. So alkaline water over time really dilutes our stomach acid. It creates less resistance in our gut microbiome to things like pathogens and antigens, microbes, parasites. Even our resistance to heavy metals is compromised when we are constantly consuming alkaline water. Alkaline water is also a byproduct, essentially, of trying to make molecular hydrogen water. So through the process of adding electrolysis to water, electrolysis is simply an electrical charge to create a biochemical change. When we go through this process to create the byproduct of molecular hydrogen, the outcome ends up being a higher pH water, which is where the term alkaline water came from, was really in an attempt to create molecular hydrogen in water. In our bottle and our process of electrolysis through the CELLPOWER bottle, we are using such a low voltage of 1.8 that the pH does not change and it remains the same. So to maintain proper digestive function as well as pH in the gut, we do not recommend consuming alkaline water. Maintaining proper pH levels throughout the body is essential to proper cell function. In another video, I will discuss the entire digestive process and the proper pHs that you want to see moving through the entire body. Next, I want to talk about distilled and RO water. So for a very long time, distilled water or reverse osmosis water is considered to be the purest water. Well, let's start with one simple thing. Water comes in three forms. So we have liquid, we have gas, and we have solid. Now, with that said, water can change forms, and water also needs to be a living structure. So first, let's break down distillation. So the process of distillation is a process where you're taking essentially contaminated water or tap water, and you're heating the water up so high until it essentially evaporates. It is then condensed back into a liquid state and distilled in order to separate contaminants from the water. So this is extracting everything. Essentially, what you're left with is considered clean and filtered water. Now, the reason why we don't recommend distilled water is because there's no living components left in water. It is essential that in living water, we have things like iron and minerals and magnesium and sulfur. So when we strip the water of all of the essential minerals, it's essentially dead water. There's no live component to it. And the body needs these minerals in order for it to be able to invite the water back into the cell. It also essentially is destructuring the water. So you aren't consuming living water, and you're consuming water that is a more alkaline pH as well, which we just discussed is not ideal for our gut microbiome or our gut function. Our body requires essential electrolytes and minerals to maintain healthy cell function. So having distilled water really isn't of service to our body for proper hydration or for cellular function. Now, next up, let's talk about RO, or reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is another process of purifying water or filtering out water, and it uses a membrane to filter out impurities. Now, there's various stages that happen in reverse osmosis water to remove contaminants from the water. So there's a pre-filter phase to catch large particles, maybe dirt or dust, and then it moves on into a UV phase where it uses ultraviolet light, carbon filter, and then the process of reverse osmosis. Unfortunately, the end result of reverse osmosis is also dead water that is lacking mineralization and lacking proper structure. Now, water actually structures itself when it's exposed to sunlight, and our bodies create something called structured water within. So this is not our normal H2O that we're used to seeing. When we see water on a hydrophilic surface or outside of a cell or exposed to sunlight, we see that the water actually begins to structure itself into this fourth phase of water, which is known as H3O2. And without getting too deep in all the science, structured water is essentially living water that can upregulate the mitochondrial function in our body, as well as really support our cellular physiology and pathology. So when it comes to putting water in your molecular hydrogen device, we highly recommend avoiding alkaline water, reverse osmosis, and distilled water. In the next video, we'll talk about best water practices and what water we do recommend in what zones and why.